How's it going, everyone? Welcome to this week's Q&A. So like any other week, if you want a chance at one of your questions being answered, make sure you drop a comment down below and I'll either answer that question right in your comment, or I'll answer it next week's Q&A episode, or I will make a dedicated video for it if need be. So with that being said, let's go ahead and give this video a like. I know a lot of people watch the video but don't necessarily like it, and that definitely helps spread the word and spread the channel out there on YouTube's algorithm. I typically don't ask you guys to do this, although I'm asking just to make sure if you are a Honda or Acura owner or potentially in the market for one, you get on to the channel and get your most informed information as much as possible. So with that being said, first question of the week is what are my thoughts on a seafoam intake cleaner, or something along the lines like it. So as we know, these engines are prone to carbon buildup, especially if it's a GDI engine or direct injection engine. So I'm okay with it. I'm currently working on a video to really get dive in deep into this subject, although what I'm doing right now is taking examples of intake valves when I am doing injectors on these cars. So I'm trying to gather as much information as possible. It's taking a little bit of time, but like that, you guys can see real time and real life examples of what's actually going on and if it's actually needed or not. So you're gonna be able to make that decision up on your own. So back to the question. Yes, I'm okay with it. Obviously follow the instructions very, very carefully. You have to almost apply this stuff as like an IV trickle in most cases. So if you overload it, then obviously the car is going to misfire and potentially even shut down. And when vehicles misfires, they actually cause catalytic converter failure. So something you want to keep a mind on. So make sure you follow the directions strictly. Try to follow them as best as possible so we don't cause any unnecessary damage. So with that being said, hopefully I answered your question for you. Next question is, what are my thoughts on the 2020 Honda Fit? And I'm generally a fan of these cars. I think they're great. They're very appreciated. I think the interior space is great. They're good on fuel economy and overall very efficient to maintain. Before the HRV came out, I would say this is probably like the best car, I would say, for maintenance purposes and keeping the cost down. Although now with the HRV, that would be my choice. Obviously, the Fit is no longer an option as it is no longer produced. But anyways, this last generation Fit, like all other Fits, was very good engine, good car. Although we have seen some failures on VTC gears and some, there was actually bulletin on certain years for carbon buildup, like our previous question. So there is a bulletin where we media blast the intake valves and get that situated for a misfire type situation. So I personally haven't done that yet. Knock on wood. Now that I'm answering this question, I'm sure it'll probably come up 2 or 3 in a row. That's just how stuff works in life. So if you're in the market for one of these vehicles, just something you want to kind of keep an eye out. I'm actually going to be doing a VTC gear in the next couple weeks on a person that actually found me on YouTube. So I'm going to be doing that VTC gear for that person. But I've only done 1 or 2, so generally not bad. So as far as the rest of the vehicle goes, again, very maintenance friendly and, very cheap to afford, and no catastrophic engine failures or anything of that nature. So if you're in the market for one of these cars, definitely get my thumbs up from it. The only knock I would say I have against it is they're underpowered and they don't come and at an all-wheel drive option, which if you're in an area where it snows, obviously that is something that you want to be mindful of. But overall, thumbs up and go ahead and buy it, and I think you'll be happy with it. All right, so the next question is, what if you're in a market for a used Accord at 2.0T? So obviously this is a vehicle that people like to modify. Great cars, great engines, great transmissions. Unlike the 1.5T, the engine seems to take a lot more abuse in terms of being able to modify it and in stock form. So we're seeing a ton of issues with these 1.5Ts. Normal people, mom and pops driving them, ton of issues. When you modify them, it gets even worse. So with the 2.0Ts stock, obviously we don't see many issues. I've seen maybe one or two head gasket failures, which is great in consideration that the 1.5Ts, I'll probably see that sometimes in a day or sometimes in the morning alone. So if you're in the market for one of these cars, the only thing I really would look out for is if it's actually been modified, and there's telltale signs that you can look at, some bolts, see if anything was touched or anything of that nature. Not that that's personally gonna affect you or bother you, but maybe that could sway your decision on whether or not you want to purchase a car that's already been modified and potentially beat on and abused. So if that doesn't bother you, maybe you could still use that as a bargaining tool to, maybe work on a price a little bit or something, along those, that time. So, again, great cars. I love the 2.0T. I think it's a phenomenal engine. The 10AT has been proven to take abuse and a lot of power and torque. So, I like them. If you're able to get one, consider yourself lucky. They are turning into a unicorn. And as the years progress, obviously there will be less and less of them. As we know, that combination is no longer an option on the 11th gen Accord. So buy with confidence, be smart, take somebody that knows what they're looking at, and just make sure you're not getting ripped off. You're not buying somebody else's headache. And once again, enjoy the extra power that you get over the 1.5T, and it's very mod friendly. So lots of positives. If you're looking for something more economical, obviously not the car for you, but something great bang for the buck and easy to modify, great vehicle. So hopefully that answers the question for you. All right, so the next question is, what is interchangeable or swappable from the 24 TLX, TLX FS, A-Spec, etc., from the 24 onto the 21 to the 23 model year? So as we know, most of the stuff was cosmetic, nothing changed in the powertrain, although they said they tweaked the shift point on the transmission. So maybe that'll be a software update that comes onto the earlier model years, like the 21, 23, not sure yet, but we will get there eventually. So I was able to borrow somebody's credentials from Acura, somebody I'm close with, and I was able to do some digging, and I'm gonna have a full video on this, but for now, I'll try to answer, some of the things that I think may be interchangeable. So cluster infotainment system. We both know the cluster's digital. Infotainment now is a little bit bigger. So they have different mounts and different types of connectors versus the 21 to the 23. So I'm going to say that's not interchangeable. The HUD, probably not interchangeable as well. If you're going to be able to adapt the HUD, that means you have to get the 24 harness, which also means that you're at that point going to be able to interchange the gauge and the infotainment, although the body control module may not be compatible with those items. So it gets real tricky. It's not like back in the day where you could just swap parts back and forth and go about your ways. Everything has to communicate with each other. ABS control unit with the gauge control unit, with the BCM, with the radar, with the camera of the car. So it's very, very difficult to say whether it's not, but from what I see, I don't think it's going to be as easy as swapping stuff at this point. If somebody's willing to try, then we will see, but it's going to be a lot of work to potentially get nowhere. As we know, also the radar is now, the grille is now frameless, so which is fine. I think the grille itself will be able to interchange into the older bumper, although the radar also changed and is smaller versus the current or the 21 to 23 radar. So if we have a smaller window for the radar to see out of, it's possible it will interfere with the older, bigger radar. So not sure. Once again, I would have to see the emblem, the glass emblem versus the current radar on the 21 to the 23 and see if there's no obstruction, then physically you will be able to change it. Now, again, if you have to change the radar, there we start the communication issues already again, and that's not going to work. So something that's also going to be an issue. There's some panels on the interior that it just has some additional stitching. Obviously, that's just stitching, and the panels are very swappable. So that will definitely be something that we can do. Not really anything anyone's going to gain anything out of it, but if you want some extra detail and a little bit high-end look, then that's something that you can do. Last but not least, there's also some USB ports now for the back driver or the back passengers. So that's something that could probably be added. Again, we would have to kind of see if there's some sort of a pigtail or not, but something that the Integra type R guys, Integra type S and the Safety type R guys are adding to their cars from like the other trim vehicles. So that's something that may be doable. I didn't get to do all that digging, but something that's definitely possible. Personally, that doesn't bother me. I don't really have people in my car that would have that use. Although if you do, then that's something that you may want to look into. So with that being said, hopefully that answers the question for you. All right, so last but not least, question of the week. And once again, if you want a chance to win your questions being answered, make sure you drop a comment down below. And the last question of the week is there long-term damage from switching gears from reverse to drive to park, etc., while the car is still in movement? And absolutely, if you're changing the gears and the transmission is not completely stopped, and it's going to shock it each and every time. And in the long run, it may not do anything initially, although in the long run, it could be grinding away at some the parking ball, etc., some gears, and eventually all those extra shavings make its way into the filter or whatnot, or port, and clog that port up. Also, obviously, if you're chipping away at those gears or clutches or whatnot, then that's something that's going to start wearing in the meantime. If you are one of these people that don't completely stop before switching gears, I would definitely advise to stop doing that. If you have a push button setup, it shouldn't let you do that. If it is, then something's probably wrong with your buttons at that point. But if you have a mechanical lever, then obviously you could manipulate it to the point where even if you press just the brake pedal a little bit and the car's still moving, it'll allow you to do that. So definitely something you want to try to avoid. You don't want to cause an issue somewhere down the line, all because you just want to take a second or two off of your movement and add to that time. So definitely something you want to try to avoid. If you've been doing it, definitely I would recommend stopping it. If you haven't done it, then you have nothing to worry about. So with that being said, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.